300 officers surrounding 23 terrified civilians while $19 million vanished into the dark. January 13, 2006. 12:31 p.m. That day, the city of Buenos Aires became a stage for the greatest deception in criminal history. The scale of the police response was immediate and overwhelming. 300 heavily armed officers, a force ready for total combat, locked down the entire perimeter of the Banco Rio. Inside, the situation was designed to freeze time itself. 23 innocent hostages were pinned to the marble floor, their lives measured by the cold pressure of pistols against their necks. Every negotiator, every chief, every official expected the impossible, bloody demands of desperate men. But the man leading the siege, calm and detached, offered a request that was utterly nonsensical, completely undermining the military setup outside. He didn't ask for a plane or a fortune. He ordered, "We require 30 boxes of assorted pizza. Enough for the hostages and us." The police command's instant dismissal, their condescending belief that they were dealing with panicked, starving amateurs, was the exact leverage the criminals needed. They failed to realize they were facing a genius who understood human psychology better than any tactical manual. The entire siege, the visible fear, the screaming sirens, it was all a brilliantly crafted theatrical lie. A magnificent smokescreen. The pistols pointed at the hostages were mere replicas, weighted meticulously to simulate absolute lethal force. This was a spectacle designed to consume every single eye, every single tactical unit, every single anxious thought. Because while the world was fixated on the pizza delivery and the tense drama above ground, the real operation was unfolding below. The true criminals were operating in total, utter silence, directly beneath the feet of the 300 police officers. The money was not their final goal, the flawless vanishing act was. This entire operation was a perfectly timed machine. But a machine, no matter how flawlessly engineered, can be destroyed by a single, unpredictable human element. The question is not how they escaped the 300-man siege. The question is, why did this masterpiece of crime collapse, not due to a tactical error or a detective's brilliance, but due to something far simpler, far more universal. Betrayal. To understand this catastrophic failure, we must first meet the mind who designed the perfect score. We must rewind. Meet Fernando Arjo, the struggling artist who decided to turn vengeance into art. The collapse of the perfect crime began not with simple greed, but with profound, institutional betrayal. The mastermind, Fernando Arjo, was an artist adrift in a city still reeling from the financial earthquake of 2001. That year, Argentina's banks had frozen accounts, evaporating the life savings of the middle class overnight. Arjo, looking at the newspaper clippings of the financial crisis, and the old pictures of a failed bank siege, saw more than just robbery. He saw a canvas for vengeance, an opportunity to strike back at the financial system that had crippled his nation. But vengeance required genius, and genius needed an engineer. Arjo called Sebastian Bolster, his high school friend, a mechanic with hands scarred from years of welding. Bolster was a direct casualty of the same crisis, having lost 80,000 pesos of his family's savings. When Arjo spread out the blueprints for the Banco Rio, Bolster didn't laugh. He only asked, how could this be physically done? The answer lay in the bank's own unique architecture. The Banco Rio was built over the city's massive storm drainage system, a network of concrete arteries that flowed directly into the Rio de la Plata. The core idea was devastatingly simple. While the front door was held captive by an elaborate theatrical production, a fact already established, Team 2, the engineers, would tunnel in below, empty the vault, and vanish through the river system. Their target was meticulously chosen. They were not interested in the traceable cash in the teller drawers. They wanted the untraceable assets, the gold, diamonds, and foreign cash, stuffed into the private safe deposit boxes of the wealthy. For Arjo and Bolster, stealing from these powerful few, who benefited from the nation's collapse, was an act of political art. Arjo approached the heist not as a job, but as a movie script. He meticulously wrote every line of dialogue, every stage direction, ensuring the psychological drama above ground would perfectly sync with the physical labor below. The key to the entire operation was a stopwatch, not a weapon. Arjo calculated that his team needed exactly 2 hours and 7 minutes to systematically crack open enough boxes to secure their fortune. Not 2 hours. Not 3. 2 hours and 7 minutes. This was the razor's edge of the operation. If the hostage crisis lasted one single second less, the vault team would be caught in the act. If it lasted one single second more, the police might escalate, check the basement, and discover the tunnel before they could retreat. This commitment to zero margin for error defined the project. The stress of that 2-hour and 7-minute countdown demanded a level of obsessive discipline that had never been seen in criminal history. Every staged phone call, every shouted command, every release of a single hostage was a calculated measure to manipulate the police's psychological response, forcing them to remain paralyzed, fixed on the front door. This level of obsessive preparation required recruiting the most formidable specialists in Argentina, men hardened by experience, who understood the anatomy of a robbery better than the police who pursued them. The stage was set, the motive was revenge, and the 2-hour and 7-minute clock was already ticking toward a deadline that would determine whether the team secured a fortune or faced a firing squad. The next phase of the plan demanded not just architects, but surgeons. Men who operated without flaw, whose weaknesses were buried deeper than the tunnel they intended to dig. Arjo's first and most critical recruit was Rubén Beto Dieter, a veteran of 17 successful bank robberies across the 1980s. Beto was a living encyclopedia of police response times, vault layouts, and most importantly, hostage psychology. But even Beto required his own specialist, Luis Mario Vitet, known only as the Uruguayan. Vitet was the definition of cold, military precision. He once held 43 hostages for 6 hours, using only tactical pressure and his chilling presence, without ever firing a single bullet. Vitet's expertise was essential to maintaining the theatrical illusion. He realized the replica pistols, while convincing, lacked the proper weight. He insisted they be meticulously weighted with lead, a small, obsessive detail that ensured the police negotiators, who would inevitably receive reports from released hostages, would believe the threat was absolute. He transformed Arjo's script into a military operation, ensuring every gasp, every whispered threat, served the 2-hour and 7-minute countdown. The physical preparation was handled by Alberto Xalas. Doc was the eyes of the operation. For 3 grueling months, he devoted his life to mapping the bank's rhythms, creating a minute-by-minute timeline of its biological clock. He recorded the manager's coffee break at 10:30 a.m., he tracked the armored truck arrivals at 2:15 p.m. He documented the shift changes of every guard. Doc's relentless surveillance uncovered the most critical secret: the golden window. Friday afternoons, specifically between 12:30 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. This was the narrow, perfect span of time when wealthy clients visited their safe deposit boxes before the weekend, maximizing the potential haul, while bank security was at its lowest, most complacent ebb. This tiny window of vulnerability was the difference between freedom and a life sentence. Finally, the escape itself required its own professional. Julian Zalo Chavarria, a former racing mechanic, whose career ended in a spectacular crash, was hired as the getaway driver. He did not care about the money, he craved the adrenaline, the absolute control of speed and timing. Chavarria didn't just scout a route, he mapped 17 different escape options from the designated storm drain exit. He calculated the police reaction time from every single precinct, down to the second. His final conclusion: 13 minutes. He would be waiting 3 blocks away, engine running, ready to execute the extraction. With the team assembled and the fatal window identified, the last and most terrifying step remained: the construction of the path itself. The operation now rested entirely on the hands of one man, Sebastian Bolster, the engineer, who was about to descend into the city's forgotten darkness. The stage was set, the cast was perfect, and only a 24-inch wall of concrete separated them from their vengeance. The entire perfect plan now hinged on one man, one terrifying, impossible task: Sebastian Bolster's subterranean war. For 15 relentless, agonizing nights, Bolster descended into the city's underbelly. He was swallowed by the storm drains, a dark, churning concrete artery thick with sewage, methane gas, and the unseen menace of absolute darkness. This was a nightmare world where rats scattered from his headlamp, and the air itself was a toxic cocktail of decay and claustrophobia. He had to drill 150 meters, navigating treacherous, fast-moving currents to reach the vault, separated only by a 24-inch wall of reinforced concrete, a wall designed specifically to withstand everything but this specific, silent penetration. His pneumatic hammer was muffled underwater, but every 10-second burst of power sent terrifying vibrations through the city's foundation. He worked in short, panicked cycles, pausing constantly to listening for the ghost of footsteps above, listening for the impossible shriek of an alarm, listening for anything that would signal failure. Heavy, unexpected rains turned the sewer into a raging, violent river, forcing him to haul industrial water pumps and custom lumber through the sewage and slime to build temporary supports against the very real threat of imminent tunnel collapse. One night, his gas detector suddenly screamed a methane warning, forcing a desperate, choking retreat and a terrifying return with a heavy oxygen tank strapped to his back. Another night, deep in the dark, he encountered another forgotten soul, a man living in the drains who fled in terror at the sight of Bolster's intense, mechanical light. There was no room for hesitation, no room for mercy, no room for error. On December 20, 2005, Bolster breached the final inch. He had created a hole, a perfect circle just wide enough for a man, directly beneath the vault floor. He sealed it immediately with quick dry cement, perfectly camouflaging the entry point. The physical stage was set. The countdown was about to begin. January 13, 2006, 12:31 p.m. Vitet, Arjo and Doc walked through the bank's front door. Dressed as ordinary businessmen, their movement was surgical, their timing absolute. Nobody move. This is a robbery. Vitet's voice, honed by military tactics, commanded instantaneous, paralyzing silence. Within 90 seconds, they had total control. At 1:15 p.m., the police encirclement was complete. Below, the engineers were already at work. Bolster struck the sealed cement plug once, and the access hole opened. They were inside. The pneumatic ram tore through safe deposit boxes with brutal, deafening efficiency. Box 73 exploded in a shower of euros. Box 91 yielded gold coins dated 1892. A fortune from the past. Box 156 held millions of dollars in bearer bonds, but they were not beasts. As they systematically emptied the left wall, the back wall, and the right wall, they encountered boxes containing moments of profound human fragility, family photographs, faded love letters, even the ashes of deceased relatives. These, they deliberately left untouched. They were thieves driven by a twisted sense of justice and vengeance, not absolute, indiscriminate desecration. At 2:47 p.m., Walter, played by Vitet, made the infamous call. The pizza demand. It traveled up the chain of command, eliciting genuine, spontaneous laughs from colonels and chiefs alike, utterly confident they understood the enemy. That laughter was the sweet sound of Arjo's perfect victory. By the time the 30 boxes arrived, the farce had bought them every single precious minute they needed. The hostages ate nervously, caught in the surreal, terrifying absurdity of the situation. 3:27 p.m. Bolster checked his watch. The heavy duffel bags bulged with approximately $19 million in mixed currencies, gold, and jewels. The 2-hour and 7-minute window was closing rapidly. Time to go. Vitet delivered the final, chilling lie over the phone to the negotiator: "We are coming out." 5 minutes. He then methodically locked the 23 hostages safely in the basement conference room, strategically arranging the toy pistols in a neat, orderly row near the door for the police to find. He vanished. Below, the engineers loaded their staggering haul onto an inflatable raft, paddling through the sewage and the dark back toward the river. 3 blocks away, Chavarria was already waiting at manhole 47B, engine running, ready to push the limits of his modified machine. At 3:33 p.m., while the police were still desperately focused on the locked front door, the real robbers disappeared into the chaotic anonymity of the rush hour traffic. They left behind the note, taped to the wall without weapons or grudges: "It's just money, not love." The vanishing act was flawless. The police were left guarding an empty theater. The greatest challenge now was not escape, but survival, because the perfect crime always carries a hidden, volatile flaw. 4 hours later, 7:45 p.m. The police waited, then stormed the bank in a blinding flash of chaos and light. They found the hostages safe. But they also found the devastating proof of their failure: the collection of small, plastic toy pistols, neatly arranged on the floor. Commander Miguel Cleo radioed headquarters, his voice thick with disbelief. The subjects had vanished. When detectives finally accessed the vault, they saw the safe deposit boxes, gaping open like screaming mouths, and the dark hole leading into the void beneath the city. The note mocked them from the wall: "It's just money, not love." The police were left guarding an empty theater. The story ignited a firestorm. The media struggled between outrage and bewildered admiration. The police were a global laughingstock, fooled by a ridiculous pizza order and child's toys. But the public reaction was explosive. Polls showed 68% of Argentines viewed the robbers as heroes. Stealing from the elite became an act of poetic justice, solidifying their status as folk legends. But a perfect crime can be solved, not by police skill, but by the oldest, most destructive human failing: a broken promise. February 2006. Beto Dieter, riding high on his portion of the fortune, felt untouchable. But his wife, Alicia Dulio, was watching. She suspected his new wealth, yet she discovered something far more painful than the robbery. Beto was planning to abandon her and their 7-year-old son for a younger mistress. One day, Alicia found a stash of $73,000 in cash plastered behind her bedroom wall. Her reaction was not greed. It was absolute, incandescent rage. Alicia walked into federal police headquarters. She was not seeking reward money, she was seeking vengeance. She told the police everything. She confirmed the names, the planning meetings, and verified the humiliating detail about the toy weapons. She traded freedom for personal retribution. She accomplished what 300 armed officers, 10,000 hours of surveillance, and millions of dollars in investigation could not. The arrests were swift and silent. They found Beto sleeping beside a fortune, offering no resistance. The crew eventually served their time and walked free, their legend intact. But for Beto, the victory was ashes. He lost his family, his respect, and his freedom, all for the sake of a fleeting betrayal. The missing $17 million never surfaced, forever fueling the legend. The greatest lesson of the Banco Río heist is definitive: controlling the narrative is more powerful than controlling weapons. But even the most brilliant criminal mind cannot safeguard against the unpredictable. Catastrophic flaw of a broken heart and a wife scorned. Did Alicia's betrayal ultimately bring justice? Or was it merely the final, tragic cost of a genius plan? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to delve deeper into the criminal psychology and flawless tactical planning of history's greatest unsolved mysteries, make sure to subscribe to Secret Files and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next case file.